On today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, James Gunn, without exaggeration, has cast the perfect Perry White. There's a brand new Garfield trailer. I love Chris Pratt, but man, I hate this trailer. I think it's absolutely terrible. There's been this fake image going around of the set of Superman showing Cornsweet in his new Superman costume. James Gunn has debunked that, but there could be bigger problems coming. We're going to discuss that a little bit too as well. And Dune Part 2 has opened atop the box office, making over $80 million in its opening weekend. We're going to talk about that and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show podcast starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff, not just giving you our opinions, but also giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or a little bit different than ours. Joining me in studio today, we got Ray Ora.
We back, baby.
Jonathan Voico's here.
What up?
Writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett.
Always fun.
And most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about those topics that I just listed off, and then we're going to take your live comments and questions. If you guys have a thought, theory, opinion, question, observation that you'd like us to address on the show, go ahead and use the super chat feature in the live chat there. And as long as it's appropriate for us to be using on the show, no Dune 2 spoilers, please, we will address it here at the end of the show. All right, guys, with that down, let's get things started with this. Of course, Superman, formerly known as Superman Legacy, James Gunn, we talked about this last week, has changed the name of the film from Superman Legacy to just straight up Superman, is now actually filming. It's no longer just a theory, no longer just table reads. People are on set, cameras are rolling, they're actually filming this damn movie. Now, we already knew about a lot of the casting. We got our Superman, got our Lois, we got our Lex, we even got some Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific and all that kind of stuff. But one name that hasn't been brought up, that is not a central Superman figure, but a common one, is the editor of the Daily Planet, Perry White. And leaving some people to wonder if we were going to get a Perry White in it. We know this movie will start with Clark working at the Daily Planet. Well, there is a Perry White, and now we found out who it is going to be. And it is, I don't say this often, perfect casting, as they cast Wendell Pierce to be Perry White. This comes from the folks at the Hollywood Reporter who said, "Great Caesar's ghost, Perry White, has been found." Wendell Pierce, perhaps best known for his work as the detective on HBO's seminal crime series The Wire, a show that a lot of TV files think might be the greatest television show of all time, has been cast as the iconic editor-in-chief of the Daily Planet in Gunn's Superman. The new feature based on the DC comic character began rolling in Atlanta on Thursday. It was previously titled Superman Legacy and now, of course, is just known as Superman. I'll tell you what, if you had asked me, who are some people you could see playing Perry White? I don't think I would have thought of Wendell Pierce. I don't think that's the name that would have come to my head. But the moment somebody sent me a link and said they just cast Wendell Pierce to be Perry White, I was like, that's utter perfection. If you've ever watched this guy, and by the way, this guy is one of these actors who has quietly, almost under the radar, gone on to have like one of the most desirable, acting careers out there. Just a taste of some of the high profile stuff that he's been in. Take a look at this. He's been, of course, we just talked about The Wire, the #1 show in the world for the last couple of years, Suits. He's been one of the main guys in Jack Ryan, that wonderful show, Treme. And I'm a big fan of Ray Donovan, so I had to throw in the Ray Donovan in there as well. But he's, of course, appeared in a lot of movies and shows and stuff like that. One of the best things I've seen in TV in a long time is, of course, he's in The Wire. And he's the one who goes, shit, right, in The Wire. And then in Suits, they would often quote him from The Wire.
Right.
When he himself is in the show, too, almost kind of like a fourth wall break. But the way he delivers lines and the way he carries himself on screen, the moment I heard them say the name Wendell Pierce, I'm like, How did we not think of this? How did we not think of this? This is dead on perfect casting. I'm so excited for this. Rob, you read about this. What do you think about Wendell Pierce, the casting of Perry White? How do you see this?
First of all, it's the voice. Wendell Pierce he's one of those actors that I don't call it the tone of his voice. He has such gravitas when he speaks. It doesn't matter what he's saying. I mean, obviously, I loved him as Bunk in The Wire. I loved him in Treme. But he has sort of a quiet, authoritative elegance to him, if that makes any sense. I mean, I can't wait to see him. I hope he's, like we saw Larry Fishburne, as Perry White. We saw Frank Langella. I thought Frank Langella was a great Perry White.
He was a really good Perry White, too. Yeah.
Returns. And I think that Perry White needs to have, he's a character, Jackie Gleason, or not Jackie Gleason, in Superman the movie, not Jackie Gleason.
I have him up here on the image.
Oh, yes, and Gary. Why am I drawing?
I can't remember his name.
Why am I drawing a blank on his name? I can't. Anyway, Perry White has to have the character of Perry White defines Clark Kent. So the kind of Clark Kent,
Jackie Cooper,
right? That's I kept Gary Cooper. Jackie Cooper was Perry White, and a great Perry White. But the character of Perry White is who Clark bounces off of. So it says a lot to me where James Gunn is going to go. I don't quite know what that version of Perry White's going to be, but just having Wendell Pierce's voice, I want to see more, and I think we're going to get more of that Perry White Clark Kent dynamic in this movie. And that when he cast Wendell Pierce, I'm like, you know what? I can't wait for this now, because whatever direction they go in with Perry White, Clark Kent's going to bounce off him. And the fact that Wendell Pierce is a very direct, I think we're going to get a really interesting, intelligent, fun, yet important dynamic with those characters. And I'm excited, man, because I love Wendell Pierce. He's on X. Sometimes I've, tweeted to him. He's liked to tweet.
I go back to the most recent iteration of Perry White with Lawrence Fishburne, who is a world-class actor. And I liked his performance very much, but there was nothing about him that screamed Perry White, even in his performance. Like he had a really good performance, an iconic line, in other news, water wet. I mean, he's great. But when I look at Wendell Pierce, like even just think about his character just in Suits and Jack Ryan, right?
He's great in Jack Ryan.
Oh, he's so good in Jack Ryan, right? But if you even just look at his characters in just those two shows, if you said that character was, even just look at Suits, say that was Perry White who decided to go back to his law career after leaving the newspaper business, I would totally buy it. Like, it's just such bang, and it's not this often that I get this excited about a small side character's casting, but I think this is great.
Well, and look, Wendell Pierce, as far as Jack Ryan goes, he follows up James Earl Jones and Morgan Freeman, and he slides into that role, and he was just as good, if not better, in that role in the Jack Ryan TV series. So I think what's going to happen, the one thing about Larry Fishburne that I missed in Zack Snyder's movies was the dynamic between him and Clark Kent. There wasn't enough of it.
Right.
And I think what James Gunn is going to do is make this more of like that 40s, more along the lines of what Jackie Cooper was doing in Superman the movie. I hope so, because I hope Wendell Pierce is used, and used a lot.
I agree. Now that I see who's playing the role, I hope they use him a lot in the movie, especially if the Daily Plan is going to be kind of central to figure. And I want to hear, Clark, Lane, get in here. Like, I just want to hear him say that. I'm so excited for it. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about the casting of Wendell Pierce as Perry White? What's your favorite Wendell Pierce role that he's played? Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? I grew up loving Garfield. Like when I was in grade school, they would bring in, like, I think once a month or every couple of months, they'd bring in these book club order forms, and like there'd be a lot of good stuff that young minds should be reading. But I went right to the Garfield section, and I would check off any of the new Garfield collectibles that would be coming.
Scholastic Book Service.
Oh, that was at Scholastic, right? And I would check off all the Garfield stuff and whatever. I also was pretty happy when I heard Chris Pratt. I mean, he wouldn't have been my first choice, but everybody cried and whined and bitched and moaned when he was cast to do the voice of Mario. How'd that turn out? Just $1 billion film, no big deal. It worked out. So and I like Chris Pratt when he does animated voices and stuff like that. So I was fine with that too. The first teaser trailer dropped and it certainly had some adorable moments.
Yeah.
There certainly was. So this new Garfield trailer, full trailer, dropped now. And I got to tell you, it's awful. It's boring. It didn't make me grin once. Not one smirk did it elicit out of me. And I love Garfield. And I love that Chris Pratt's doing the voice. I don't mind the basic idea that he was an abandoned kitten. They did change his origin story a little bit. That's fine. That he was, lost his dad as a kitten, finds John, all that. That's all good. That's fine. But man, when a trailer is supposed to be the thing that sells you on something, I'm not saying put the funniest jokes in the movie in your trailer, but you better make me laugh when I'm watching the trailer. And I was watching this, it's like, okay, we got all the Garfield isms. There should be a joke about lasagna. Absolutely, that should be in there. There should be an Odie thing in there. Absolutely. But Rob, I got to tell you, as a big Garfield guy, as somebody who's kind of been cautiously looking forward to this, I thought this was dull. It didn't do anything to get me excited for it. And again, the movie might be the best movie of the year. We're just talking about a trailer. I've seen lots of bad trailers to movies that I ended up loving. So I'm not talking about the movie, but for me, the trailer was a big letdown. You had a chance to check it out. What did you think about the trailer?
Look, I was never a big Garfield guy. I was more of a Snoopy guy. I like, Charles Schultz and the Peanuts. Maybe I was even a Family Circus guy, much as I probably shouldn't admit that now. But I thought, like you, I thought this trailer was... Look, we have so much... I think now, today, is the perfect time to introduce Garfield and make him more Garfield than Garfield's ever been. We're living in a world where Garfield can have more to say than he's ever had to say before. And I just feel like this trailer... to be honest, I wanted a lot more out of it. It was a little too traditional. I'm like, you need to push the envelope with Garfield and make him... He was already a bit, long in the tooth when he was new. I felt the humor was borderline. It was all right. I never loved it. I loved more harder edge stuff, and I would like to see... You're
more of a Fritz the Cat guy than a Garfield the Cat guy,
and
right?
the world needs... That is very true. That is very... And the 9 Lives of... If you kids haven't seen Fritz the Cat, it's an X-rated cartoon, and you should find it. But you know what? I can't tell. I mean, I don't know who this movie's for.
For me, baby.
For me. Right.
I mean, I want it to be good.
Did you like the trailer, Ray?
Yeah, I did. I thought it's not the best trailer, but I was smirking at a couple parts in it. I like when he's inside the lasagna box. I thought that was cute. I can't. Oh.
I think my main problem with it was that it's one of those trailers that again gives away the entire plot. Like almost all 3 acts. I mean, we see the origin story, which we saw in the teaser, and then we see kind of the backside of what we saw in the teaser, where he's rejoining with his father. But then it's like, oh, I'm on the run from this bad cat, and then it's like, oh, not only was he on the run from this bad cat, now I got to form this super team to rescue him. It's like, how much do we need to see of this movie?
Right.
And also, I got to say, if this is the tone for this film can't go over an hour and 30 minutes. Definitely not. It's just one of those ones where I'm like...
But you say that about every movie.
No. This one definitely. If it's going to be like in this tone...
I don't think it'll be more than that.
It's got to be a shorter movie than what we're used to lately.
All right, guys, question is for you. Did you have a chance to see the new Garfield trailer? I personally didn't like it, but maybe you guys did. And listen, I'm still going to hold out hope that just because I didn't like the trailer doesn't mean I won't like the movie. But how did you feel about it? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's talk about this, shall we? So we already covered the fact that Superman is now in production. The new Jane, formerly known as Superman Legacy, now Superman is in production. They're in front of the cameras. Now, what happened was an image got online and started making the rounds. And a lot of people purporting that it was legit and real. And this is the image. You can take a look at it here. That we got David Cornsweet on set, it reportedly saying, and a lot of people saying, oh, this is the new costume and all that kind of stuff, even though it doesn't really look at all Like there's no texture to it, nothing that was in the James Gunn officially posted thing. But, you know, at a first quick glance, you might think, yeah, that looks like a set photo. That looks like a behind the scenes set photo. And so a lot of people started running with it, and eventually some people thought it was fake, some people thought it was real. A bunch of people went to James Gunn saying, look, is this thing real? Is this really it? And James Gunn shot it down. You know, James Gunn went through and nitpicked all the obvious ways that this was AI generated, and the guy's drawstring on his sweatpants are at the back of his pants instead of his front.
The wall behind him.
You know, the one guy is he's got his hands like he's holding the camera, but there's no camera. And anyway, just a lot of different things that he pointed out that he said, this is clearly an AI generated image and all that kind of stuff. So to me, the story isn't James Gunn debunks behind the scenes picture of Superman. To me is, this ain't the last time we're going to have purported behind the scenes or production images going around. Look, we all saw that, you know, new service. What's it called? The one that does the fake video? Soma or Sona, something like that. And it's just like, it's not perfect, but it's kind of mind-boggling, the type of fake stuff. And I was lamenting, it's like, you know, one of these days someone's going to be putting out a video of, you know, Donald Trump kicking a kitten or Joe Biden punching a schoolgirl in the face or something like that, and trying to pass or worse and pass them off and see what's going on. But in the world of movie fandom, I think this is our first real look at what will become a real problem, because even besides the video one, if someone like you have like the Da Vinci AI and whatever this and whatever, like all these image generating AI stuff things now. And I think this is going to become a real issue in the world of film fandom. Now, at the end of the day, you might be somebody who would say, well, I mean, who really cares? Because when the movie comes out, the movie comes out. But what we have seen happen is, and this has happened a lot over the last decade or so, a fake report goes out saying this person's going to be in this. And then 5 years later, people asking, whatever happened to that? Like, why did the studio cancel that? It's like, well, the studio never said it was. I remember there being stories about it. Yeah, but it wasn't from the studio. I think we're going to see fake Fantastic Four set pictures. I think we're going to see fake Blade pictures. I think we're going to see fake new Star Wars pictures.
I'll take them.
Yeah, that's what I'll even take the fake Blade one. Anything will do at this point. We're going to start seeing fake, you know, Robert Downey Jr.'s back as Iron Man pictures. We're fake new Harry Potter pictures. I mean, it's just, I think this is going to become a real problem. And when one that's not even very good, like this one, that some people caught was fake, but a lot of people didn't, these are just going to get better. And I foresee a lot of chaos coming in the coming months and years with this sort of thing. Anyway, Rob, what did you think about the fake coming out that James Gunn did jump in quickly to say it's not? But can this become a bigger problem, or am I getting too worried for nothing?
Dude, no, it's going to become a problem. It's not just going to be movie fandom. People are going to start giving you historical documents of things that, look what happened. What we thought was history is wrong. I mean, our entire civilization, I would say, and this is not hyperbole, is at risk from AI technology on every level. Whether kids are going to generate pornography of their students sit next to them, whether people are going to try and change history, if people are going to try and criminal trials, they're not going to have any kind of photographic evidence allowed anymore because of the sophistication of, I mean, it's going to change our entire civilization because we have no checks and balances for this, and it's going to be buckle up. But as far as film fandom goes, I like the fact that James Gunn stepped in, because it's now like, I don't have to believe anything I see until it's officially released from Warner Brothers. It either comes out on an official site or it comes out, I mean, and in a way, maybe because of this, fandom itself will start to self-police and be like, get out of here with those AI images. And the people that are going to try and trick you will get shamed, as they should, because what they're trying to do is lie. They're trying to lie and they're trying to deceive you, and people should hate that. People should turn against them and go, you know what? I'm a fan of Superman. I'm a fan of what's going on. I want to be able to enjoy this movie. Why are you trying to undermine my enjoyment of something by trying to put something out that's creating controversy when there shouldn't be? Let the filmmakers do. But this is what's going to have to happen, I think, with all AI technology. Every individual is going to have to take a stand and say this is something that needs to be regulated, policed, and shunned if people are trying to lie to you.
I wonder, I mean, this is going way too far extreme, but part of me wonders, like, if government should step in and say, look, new rule, for every new AI generation content company, AI generated website, you have to have a clear watermark on every image that it creates. And if any user removes the watermark showing that it's an AI generated image, 10 years in prison. I know that sounds extreme.
Well, no, but I think you're not wrong. There's going to have to be something like that, because it's not just going to be people on the internet talking about movies. It's going to be bad actors trying to influence everything from stock markets and commodities markets to historical documents to legal documents. All of the bad actors, all the worst impulses of humanity are going to try and use this technology for nefarious reasons. And by the way, they already are. So it depends on how are we going to handle it and what are we going to do. And it's going to be one of the great, between this kind of thing and what's going to happen with biotech and what's going to happen with all kinds of stuff, we are not prepared as a species to deal with what this technology is going to put upon us.
No, because we're too apathetic. We're like, oh, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about how I said there's this fear like somebody could use this for political reason, like showing Trump doing something or showing Biden doing something. But the opposite becomes true, right? Like you could catch somebody dead to rights doing something wrong and just have them just go, oh, it's fake.
Well, yeah.
But it wasn't fake. It was real. But now you can just say, oh, it was just fake.
And how do you
AI
prove
generated it? Like, yeah.
I mean, and
it's going to become a problem, man.
It's huge. And but we're all going to get to see what it's like to live in that world.
All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? The greatest movie I've personally seen in the last 10 years just completed its opening weekend at the box office is Dune 2. Hit the public theaters for everybody who wanted to go to see it, Ann and I went to go see it for the third time yesterday. Rob, I know you've seen it at least a couple of times already. And it looks like a bunch of people went to go see it because the box office is now in. Dune 2 originally reported as being $81.5 million. They've now had the actuals come out and it's $82.5 million. This comes to us from the folks at Variety who said this. Dune Part 2 is riding those massive sound worms all the way to the top of the box office charts. Director Denis Villeneuve's big budget sequel has collected, again, it's now corrected to $82.5 million in its domestic debut and delivered a mighty necessary jolt for struggling movie theaters. It's the biggest opening weekend of the year and the largest since last October's Taylor Swift concert film, The Eras Tour. Taylor Swift over sandworms. This is an outstanding opening for a science fiction sequel, says David A. Gross of movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research. Audiences are connecting with these human, vulnerable characters. All right. So the first Dune movie, under unfortunate circumstances, opened to $40 million. Now, you take that with huge asterisks of the fact that HBO put it on HBO Max the same day, and they were still kind of in the throes of a pandemic situation, so not everybody was going back to the theaters yet, but $40 million. And I've said for a while, I think if they can double that, they'd be sitting really, really good. And they certainly have. 82.5 million. As again, I checked, the regular movie theaters that in my AMC Tyler Galleria were significantly full, but the IMAX screenings and the AMC Dolby Prime screenings were like booked for days. The IMAX 70 millimeter screenings in like Universal and whatever are booked for weeks for this. And I'm going to be fascinated. And look, I don't want to get ahead of them. I want to give, Denis and the folks at Warner Brothers a chance to celebrate, $82 million opening. That's awesome for a film like this. That is not for everybody. But I'm going to be very curious to see its second weekend drop off because
that's what I'm wondering.
I don't think it's going to be much.
No, I don't think it is either.
I think there are going to be a lot of people who, number one, saw it and want to go back.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of people that didn't see it and are hearing everybody raving that this is a masterpiece, want to go and check it out. And I think there are probably a lot of people who just want to see it on the biggest screen possible, and all their IMAXs were booked up this week, and they want to go back. Now, I'm not saying it's going to have a 20% drop, but Rob, I'll tell you what, I can see a lower than 50% drop, which would be incredible. Anyway, you saw these numbers. What's your reaction to it? And what are we going to see next week?
Well, I think, John, you always say movies are an experiential event. never more so than this film. I mean, you don't just watch this movie, you experience this movie. And I think people are starved for and I think to a certain extent, in a way, Barbie and Oppenheimer were both very experiential movie events, not just because the Barbenheimer phenomenon, but when you go and saw both of those films, they immersed you into each individual world. And that was just a wind-up, though, to this. And even though people had a taste of it, I think that when people are seeing this, it's thought-provoking. It's really interesting to watch. You feel this movie down to your skeleton if you're watching it in IMAX. And it's just this overwhelming experience. You really feel, I think, when you walked out of it, that you've been changed a little bit. And how often do you get that from an experience? And, even the people that aren't or maybe not particularly interested, they're hearing other people say this and they want to see it themselves. And I think, I read a really interesting Deadline article. I covered it on my own channel, where Mary Parent and the people at Legendary, because of the day and date release of Dune 1, they didn't know at first whether they were going to pull the trigger on Dune 2. And they said, you know what? We believe in this movie. They actually did research. And they went to all the different foreign territories, and they extrapolated out, would Dune 2, without this day and date thing on Max, do we think it could make money? Because Legendary financed 80%.
That's right. Yep.
Of the movies. And they did the same for Dune 2. And they had the balls and they had the thought, this is how Hollywood should work. They're like, you know what? We know this movie's going to make money. We're going to roll the dice. We're going to get the money. And they made it. And these are people that knew. They bet on their gut. They did the research themselves, and they went out and made it happen, and they're getting rewarded. And to me, that is the kind of thinking that the entertainment business needs, and they're getting rewarded for it. And I think you hear Gladiator 2's budget's in excess of $300 million, and this was less than $200 million. Planning, all the people that knew what they were doing. I mean, this to me is an example of what Hollywood filmmaking, especially studio filmmaking, should represent now. And I love this film. I think it's truly an example of what Hollywood is supposed to be doing at this level and at this point in 2024, at this point in the 21st century. And I think everything about this film makes me optimistic about movies in general and the future of cinema. Is that too much?
I was doing just a small ask. I was doing an open spoiler discussion yesterday, and I think it was yesterday, and somebody asked me, John, you said you thought if Dune came out in 2023, it would be the heads-on favorite to win Best Picture. And it's like, Oppenheimer is really good. Oppenheimer is awesome. I'm looking forward to it winning Best Picture at the upcoming Academy Awards. But I said the reason, and this goes to what you were just saying, the reason I believe that Dune would easily win Best Picture, Best Director, like all that kind of stuff this year, is because not only is Dune 2 a triumph of filmmaking, but I said, what you got to understand is this. This is being voted on by the Academy. Dune 2 is the kind of movie that Hollywood people have been waiting for again. Because Dune 2 harkens back to the days of Cleopatra and Ben-Hur, those classic epic scale Hollywood kind of movies. And Dune 2 might be the best modern representation of that harkening back to the old age. And if you don't think that there are hard-ons raging all across Hollywood executive suites seeing a movie like this.
Oh, yeah, because that bucket's everywhere.
that Dune bucket is everywhere now, raging everywhere. I mean, this is something the Academy will vote for in their sleep, because this is the type of movie that these Hollywood execs, that these Hollywood insiders, this is the kind of movie they've been waiting for forever. And I think a lot of fans have been feeling like this is the kind of movie we've been waiting for. Again, Rob, I know you said that yourself several times about this film.
I also think it also shows the kind of, look, Denis Villeneuve, like Christopher Nolan, came out of the independent tradition. They were making their own indie movies. If you look
By the way, they love each other. Like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan are the hugest fanboys.
I mean, if you look at Polytechnic or Incendies, or you look at Following and Insomnia, these are people that were allowed to hone their craft. They made their way into the studio system. They were given opportunities to work within the studio system, making something like Prisoners, or in Nolan's case, making Insomnia. They're working their way up and honing their craft. They weren't some indie darling that won a festival award for $1 million movie, and then they get thrown into the deep end to make a giant tentpole property. These are true artists. These are the kind of filmmakers that the studios used to employ all the time, that we have very few of that can work. They've earned the rights to do these things, and it's great to see. And they don't need to spend, I mean, it's not inexpensive, but they don't need to spend all the money. Oppenheimer and Dune 2 are both films that did not break the bank. They were made by people that knew what they were doing, with crews that knew what they were doing, and they deliver what the studios, only the studios can deliver, make no mistake. But you have to have the filmmakers that understand how to make these films, that have a team of people that work with them, and this is the ultimate example of what Hollywood filmmaking should be.
Right, Ray, can you look up for me? I think it's about 200 million. What was the production budget on Dune 2? I think I heard it was 200.
Oh, I thought it was 190.
190. Okay, so
Something
let's
like
go 190 to 200 million, right? And Ray will get the actual number.
Would have been less if they could have made them both
190?
together.
190.
So $190 million. Okay, now to your point about, because I've been saying for over 2 decades that I think studios generally spend too much money on the movies they make. Now I want to hold up 2 movies for you. Dune, being made for $190 million, and Fast X, that was made for $360-something million, literally double what, close to double what Dune spent. And I just want to forget the quality of the movie. We're not asking about which is the better movie, but I'm going to say, in your mind's eye, put up Dune 2, put up Fast X. Which movie looks like the more expensive movie? Dune 2 by a mile. I mean, Dune, I don't mind when studios spend $150-200 million in a movie. If I'm sitting there in theater and I look at it and I come out going, I feel like I saw every dollar on the screen. Like every dollar was put on the screen in this movie. And it's just such a win on so many different levels for that.
But also, I mean, as a fan, someone who loved the Fast and the Furious franchise, I look at Fast X and I'm like, you've taken a franchise that I love and this is what you've delivered with the most money you've ever had to work with? Because, it's a movie made by committee. It's a movie driven by what the studio wanted. It's a movie where the first director left. And you're thinking, this is ridiculous. Pull the plug. Warner Brothers, why don't they give us Coyote versus Acme? I don't know. But we get this film, and you realize this is exactly what Hollywood's supposed to do. It's not easy to do, but it's because you have filmmakers that know what they're doing, that are allowed to do stuff, with, more importantly, with a financier that believes in their filmmakers. And Mary Parent was there when this movie was being made. She was in the desert for the 2 months they were shooting in the desert. I mean, you don't get that. That's how Hollywood's supposed to work.
And by the way, there's a story that needs to be told about, because you remember when the first Dune came out, and I'm freezing on the name of the guy who's the CEO of Warner Brothers at the time. Killar, thank you. But Jason Killar made the decision we're going to put it on HBO Max, and Denis Villeneuve was pissed. He was so angry, he wrote a voluntary op-ed piece for Variety to basically say, fuck y'all for doing this to me, blah, blah. I mean, there was a real time that it looked like we ain't going to get a Dune 2. So I think there's probably some really big kudos for studio execs around somewhere who, and granted, there was a leadership change and an ownership change in Warner Brothers, that at some point, Denis Villeneuve and studio heads got together and said, listen, we're going to make this work. We're going to make this work. We're going to make you happy again. And thank God that happened, because we got one of the greatest movies I've ever seen.
Well, and they also didn't tell anybody they were going to do it.
Yeah.
The people at Legendary who put up 80% of the budget got effed on this.
And they got blindsided. They had no idea that Warner Brothers was going to take their movies that they spent 80% of the production budget on, didn't even bother telling them, and came out and made an announcement, oh yeah, we're going to take all these movies and put them on HBO Max day and date, that we put them in theaters. And they got a lot of lawsuits.
And guess who's not running Warner Brothers now?
Jason
AT&T and Jason Killar. Of course, there's other problems, but
Let me ask you this, though. Let me ask you this. I don't think, Ray, you can look up for me what's coming out next weekend. We do got Kung Fu Panda 4 coming out. That's going to attract,
totally different audience,
a family audience and stuff like that. But still, what do you think Dune 2 is going to do next weekend? Are we looking at a $50 million second weekend, a $30 million second? I think we could see over $40 million.
I completely agree with you. And if you look, the theaters that are really loving this are IMAX, and people are seeing this. Everyone knows to see this on a big screen, because John, in the 50s when they made movies like Ben-Hur and Cleopatra, it was to combat the onslaught of television. Now we're almost in the same position. How do you get Hollywood back on top, especially after these strikes? I hope IATSE doesn't go on strike, because that could kill the industry.
Yeah.
But these are the kind of movies that bring people back to the theater. We're riding a wave. Oppenheimer and Barbie, and now this. And hopefully, we've got a few other movies. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Deadpool and Wolverine, the new Alien Romulus movie. There's a lot of interesting stuff that hopefully we'll get. Hopefully they're great, and they provide those experiences. But this is what Hollywood does best. More, please. Please, sir. May I have another?
Yeah, because, I always say that, right? That when people go to a movie and have a great time, they want to go back again, right? Like, that's why Kevin Feige cheers for DC movies, because if people go to a DC movie, a comic book movie, have a great time at a comic book movie, they're more likely to come back. I came out of Dune, and one of the first questions I asked Ray today when I came into the studio today was, hey, when does Godzilla versus Kong come out? And then when does Planet of the Apes come out? And then, because like I'm excited to go back to the movies again.
Yeah.
And that's what a great movie can do. It can like spark that fire and even help other movies around.
And Coppola's Megalopolis,
Yeah,
one of my
that's
favorite
coming.
directors who sold his vineyard to finance his own $120 million movie. You go, Francis.
We got nothing big really opening other than Kung Fu Panda 4 and Imaginary, that horror film. I believe.
Yeah.
By the way, that's an interesting looking little film.
It looks pretty good.
Yeah,
There is like Love Lies Bleeding and a couple of comedies, but yeah.
You and I are both pretty interested in that Love Lies Bleeding. I'm interested in that. But anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Dune comes out, makes $82.5 million on its opening weekend, a film that I say is not a popcorn film for the masses. I think this is a great result for it. How do you think it's going to do in its second weekend? Are you going to see like a 60% drop like a lot of films have been having lately on its second weekend? 50%, maybe lower than 50%, whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we're going to move on and to the most important part of our show, which is hearing from you guys, taking your thoughts, theories, opinions, and questions. But before we do, we're going to take a quick second, thank the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Factor. We want to take a second and thank a sponsor of today's video, Factor. Guys, some days it's great to prepare your own meal, but some days it's great to have wonderful, delicious meals already ready to go. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals makes eating better every day easy. Wherever tomorrow takes you, be ready with pre-prepared, chef-crafted, and dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. You'll have over 35 different options a week to choose from, including keto, calorie smart, vegan, veggie, and more. And there's even more to enjoy with over 55 nutrition-packed add-ons that help make your weekly meal planning even more delicious. So what are you waiting for? Get started today and have a feel-good week of meals ready to go. They've got snacks, smoothies, and more. Discover a wide variety of easy options for the entire day, like breakfast, midday bites, and more. And guys, you get to save. We've done the math. Factor is less expensive than takeout, and every meal is dietitian approved to be nutritious and delicious. So guys, head to factormeals.com/Campea50 and use the code Campea50 to get 50% off. That's code Campea50 at factormeals.com/Campea50 to get 50% off. And thank you to our friends at Factor for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys. With that down, I just got good news. I was supposed to go to the airport to pick up our buddy, and I don't have to go pick him up anymore. I love not having to pick people up at the airport. Anyway, let's go over to your comments and questions now, shall we? Jonathan, what do we got up first?
We got, starting with Magello. Don't know if this is a spoiler since it's in the trailer, but do you think the Bene Gesserit are the enemies that Paul talks about in his visions?
Can't go into detail because that's a specific detail in the thing. There's a part in the movie. I mean, this isn't a spoiler or anything where he says, "Hey, our enemies are all around us, and there might be a way out." No, I don't think he was talking about the Bene Gesserit there at all. I think that's a part of the problem, but it's a large problem. Again, I can't go into more detail about that because we'd be spoiling details of the movie. But I'll just basically say, in general, no, I don't think so. All right, what's next?
We got Sam Fisher who says, "Did you see that Adam Savage from MythBusters?" And a former ILM model maker took the Dune popcorn bucket and turned it into a diorama. It's really cool.
It is really cool.
Is it what it? So basically, what's the idea of it?
He made it so Paul's riding that worm.
The popcorn bucket?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Turned it into a whole diorama. It's really cool.
Again, they had no Dune popcorn buckets yesterday. Did you see the new Ghostbuster one? It.
Is there plasma in there?
Well, it looks it looks like Slimer is getting ready to give you a happy ending. I
Yes.
mean, that's kind of what it looks. But you know what? It's not an accident.
I know.
They know exactly what they're doing. And you know what? It works. It's getting people talking about them, and yeah, so it's like,
Oh boy.
yeah. Are you looking at it now, Ray? You looking at the picture now? Yeah. Oh boy. I'm just saying.
Oh.
Well, I
Yeah.
just want you to put hot dogs in his mouth.
Yes, that's all it is.
You know,
It's
by
it's
you know,
hot
Oh,
dogs.
and it's clear too.
some Hebrew National.
all right. What's
It's
next?
translucent.
This
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, insert here.
Translucent.
nice. All right.
All right, what's next?
We did Sam Fisher, Stefan Rondalone. I can only imagine that seeing Dune 2 is how people felt in '77 watching Star Wars for the first time. I was blown away watching this film, except the difference is no one saw anything like Star Wars before.
Yeah.
We have seen Star Wars.
See, like they did things. I'm going to say it's a little bit different than that, because I'm going to say it's probably more like people watching The Godfather for the first time, like the pure quality of, because like Star Wars was a collection of things that had never been seen on the
Right.
screen before. Like I would highly recommend go onto Disney Plus and look up the little docuseries Light and Magic to really understand like how they created things that nobody had even ever thought would be possible to put on film. Dune 2 isn't that. Dune 2 is remarkable. The visual effects are incredible. Yes, it looks great. But it was a very different experience, I would think, Rob. Like the thing I give any kind of equivalency to when I walked out of Dune was the feeling I had, say, walking out of Winter Soldier for the first time. Because I remember when I walked out of Winter Soldier, I was shaking. I was like, I didn't expect this could be this good. And I had that feeling, but only more so. You know what I mean? So I don't know that you can compare it to Star Wars. What do you think?
No, I mean, look, the thing, like you said, I'll give you a quick example. In the opening shot of Star Wars, when the crawl goes away and the camera tilts down and you see Tatooine, no one had ever showed a planet from space where the planet itself was turned into an entire horizon line that, I mean, you always saw a planet depicted as a sphere or partially a sphere, even in 2001. But when the camera pulls down, you see 2 moons or whatever, and then you see Tatooine across the entire bottom of the frame.
Yeah, taking up
and
the
no one,
horizon.
and of course that's as if they took a camera in space and they put the camera showing you a planet depicted on a movie screen. No one had ever seen that angle of a planet before, and then to see a ship scream over the top of that, immediately that was something that was an actual image that no one had ever seen in the history of cinema ever. And that was the first shot. And if you move along, there's just things, the used future, the robots, the actual, they depicted everything like when you're on the sets of the Death Star or on the Rebel Blockade Runner, those sets looked like they were real places.
Yeah.
And no one had ever done that for a science fiction film. No one had even come close. So when people were watching this movie, it was as if, again, like with Dune, they went somewhere like in space. They went to another galaxy a long time ago and filmed there. And it's hard to explain that to people now because everyone's so used to it. But at the time, no one had ever seen that before, ever. Not even close. There's nothing even close to Star Wars at that time.
I would say that even since then, the only thing that I could think would be comparable would be the first time people saw Jurassic Park.
My mind just went there.
Right.
It's so funny you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first time, like when we saw the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, and we were all like, but even that doesn't really compare. to
I would
what
also
Star Wars
say that
was.
20th Century Fox followed it up with Alien that had that same lived
Yeah.
in, but the creature in Alien, no one had ever seen anything like that either. The depiction of it. And then, it was just, it's wild because you can't explain to people. The Matrix do. After Jurassic Park showed us things like with bullet time. Now it's old hat, but we had never seen some of those effects before either.
All right, what's next?
We got Sanchez guy who says, hey, John, I'm sorry to hear you didn't like the Garfield trailer. Speaking of trailers, Crew, the trailer for Disney's epic Mickey Mouse Rebrushed is available. It's a remake of the 2010 Wii game.
Never heard of either. Never heard of the original Wii game. Never heard of
Me neither.
I used to love the Mickey Mouse and the Castle of Illusion. It came out on Sega Genesis. I love.
Oh my God, that's going
Yeah,
back.
you're going back.
That's
there,
an
buddy.
OG video gaming right there.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
Enrica Mejia says, "Hi all. Saw Dune 2 this weekend. Holy crap, I loved it. Saw it at the Boeing IMAX theater in Seattle. Screen is 60 by 80 with laser projection. It's true IMAX worth for the arena scene alone."
You know what's funny? Forgive me for not giving credit to who the YouTube creator was, because I can't remember who it was. Somebody did a side-by-side IMAX to AMC Dolby Prime experience of watching Dune 2. And it was really interesting because he was showing in a true 70 millimeter IMAX, you get a little bit more on the top and the bottom of the image. But then when he showed the AMC Dolby Prime, you lose a little bit of the bottom and the top, but you gained more of the image on the sides that were cut off in the IMAX screen. It was really interesting. You know, a lot of people often ask me, hey, what's the theater I should go to see Dune 2? Should I go in the IMAX? Should I go to the Dolby Prime? And I say, look, I usually choose Prime, but they're both a win. Like, you go to IMAX, the first time I saw Dune 2 was on an IMAX screen.
Yeah,
and it was awesome. Then I saw it in the Dolby Cinema at AMC, and it was awesome. I actually like it a little bit more because the sound, man, when that, you see a clip of it in the trailer, but when they shoot down the Harkonnen, the chopper, right? And it comes down.
It's not a chopper.
Yeah, and it crashes in the sand. The way the whole theater shakes.
Yeah.
And the seats, it's like you're so immersed in it. They're both huge wins. Both have their advantages. Both have slight disadvantages. But you got to at least once try to see this on a 70 millimeter IMAX screen.
I mean, even
it's so gorgeous.
Yeah, even the sound of like the spice
hovering
harvesters,
over the sands.
you get like nervous because it's just a really unsettling, loud piece of machinery that you're like, dude, this seems dangerous.
Oh, that thing's great. I love that machine. It's just kicking up spice. That's all it is. It's just to kick up spice. Oh, it's so good. All right, what's next?
We got Amin, who says, top 10 best sequels of all time, no order: Dune 2, Two Towers, Empire, T2, Godfather 2, Aliens, Dark Knight, Toy Story 2, Winter Soldier, Paddington 2. Is anything missing? If so, what would you swap?
Honestly, you just, I think, nailed.
Pretty much nailed it. I mean,
was Aliens in there?
yes.
Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely has to have
Road Warrior. I made a big.
Road
Mad
Warrior.
Max, people don't think of that because it's not really a big budget.
But I mean, if I were to just quickly off the top of my head put together the best sequels of all time, I think that pretty much summed it up.
And then Spider-Man 2. Someone's saying Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2, X2. You know, there's a lot of good ones, but whew, yeah, there have been some great ones. You know, it's for a long time, the rarest of creatures to find in the movie Wild was a sequel that was actually better than the original. Because for a long time, the standard trope in movie fandom was sequels always suck.
Sure.
Right? And it is a rare thing to find a sequel that's better than the original. I would say Empire Strikes Back. I would say Terminator 2. I would say, everybody always laughs at me at this one, but Rush Hour 2, I think it's, because I thought Rush Hour sucked, but Rush Hour 2 is fantastic. But yeah, there have been some really, really great sequels, but it's still not common to find sequels that are better than the original. All right, what's next?
Got Sam Fisher, who says, I can hear Wendell Pierce yelling, "Get in here, Kent."
Totally.
That's how I know it's a good casting. I can hear it. I hope he has a cigar chomping. He is a cigar chomping hothead.
You know what? By the way, I was talking about how earlier, like the way he would say "shit" and thing.
Imagine if he says that in Superman.
One of my friends in the live chat was watching live and said in the live chat, "No, that was the politician, not him." I'm like, "Oh, that's right, it's a different guy." Still hilarious though that they're quoting a show.
Yeah.
That he was in while on that show with them. I still think that was hilarious that they did that.
It is though how he says Kent.
Oh yeah,
his whole performance
100%.
It comes down to the way he says Kent.
It's gonna be so good. I can't wait. All right, what's next?
We got Davju says, saw Dune 2 last week in IMAX and last night in Dolby. While the film is cropped in Dolby, the sound and rumble is incomparable. So awesome.
Again, because I didn't know this until I watched this movie last night, it's cropped in IMAX too. It's just that In one, you're getting a tiny little bit of the top and the bottom cropped out, and in the other, you're getting a tiny little bit of the left and the right cropped out.
Unless you see 70 millimeter IMAX, but then you're not taking advantage of the full IMAX.
But that's the one
screen.
they were showing. He was putting up the 70 millimeter IMAX compared to that, and they both lose a little bit in different spots. Ultimately, neither will impact your enjoyment of the film.
No.
Right.
But yeah, the IMAX, just the sheer size of it when you're looking at the deserts of Arrakis, the Dolby Cinemas at AMC with that sound, with the Atmos and the color richness. I mean, they both have their advantages. Both are a big win. It's all a matter of flavor. I lean towards the Dolby flavor. Nothing wrong at all with leaning towards the IMAX flavor. All right, what's next?
I just can't wait to watch it on my phone. Jay Loco says Dune 2 will never be perfect because they never showed how the hell you dismount a worm, especially with a party of 50 and with a pregnant woman. So it's 9.5.
Yeah, without going into any details, I mean, you see that they ride the worms in the trailers, right? But a big question that came in a lot yesterday in the open spot is like, how do you get off? And my best explanation was Ann and I, we used to ride one wheels. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a one wheel. I'm going to see if I can find an image of one on here and bring it up on screen. Oh, I think I'll be able to. Yes. So Ann and I, we never bought one. Here's an example of one wheel. We never bought one, but we would rent these one wheels and go booting around on them. And the craziest thing and by the way, these are great. Totally not safe, but they're really fun. These one wheels are incredible. So we used to ride these around, and what they would tell us is, now this is going to seem anti-intuitive, but the best way to get off of the things is to jump off. Like come to a stop and then hop off. Like if you try to put one foot down, you're going to flip, and they'd say that. So I was thinking that was probably the same way they would dismount the worm. They, at some point, just look for a good soft dune and jump off.
Yeah.
But there's also scenes in the movie, without giving any context, where it's like 50 people are riding a worm with a little tent on it and hanging out, like having hookah and having a crock pot and like enjoy. How did you get on? We saw how Paul got on in the clip. How do you even get? Anyway, I'm sure Denise says he's actually going to say how that happens in the next one he does. But
we do see the worm stop at one point too. So
it's like a bus stop.
They're able to like hold them.
Yeah, they come to a stop.
Those are the trained worms.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
The trained worms.
The worm riders. Of Dune.
Jay Loco says, oh no, wait. Michael says, I feel Timothée Chalamet today is what Leonardo DiCaprio was in the 90s. Between him, Zendaya, Austin Florence, and Anya, we have 5 of the best actors this generation in one movie.
Rob, I don't know if you heard me say this. The Fremen War Council scene has maybe become my all-time favorite scene. Is always going to be Vader, Luke, in the Emperor's throne room. But I think this thing has become my second favorite scene ever in a movie. And if you want to talk about how good an actor Timothée Chalamet is, and I talked about this on our spoiler discussion yesterday. I said, I don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear any more of these people who like, I think Timothée Chalamet's overrated. I don't want to hear it anymore. It's because you just sound stupid. I feel like Will Ferrell in Step Brothers when they're doing the job interview. Just stop. You're making yourself sound stupid. Just stop. Like, and normally when I hear from people who will say Timothée Chalamet's overrated, I'm like, did you ever see Beautiful Boy? They never have. Did you ever see Bones and All? They never did. Did you ever see Call Me by Your Name? They never did. And it's like that. And then he does Wonka, which shows us he's got this other total arsenal in his package that he can do. And then he comes in and does Dune. And I said this, he does the War Council thing, and he's walking in basically telling millions of people, I'm your daddy. And none of you can stand against me. A 98-pound, soaking wet, scrawny as hell little kid.
He's quick.
Convinces the audience that he is the Kwisatz Haderach. The Meshach Hackashack, whatever it is. He convinces that he's the baddest man on the planet. This 98-pound, scrawny dude convinces the Fremen and all of us in the audience that you don't fuck with him. And he convinces you of that, like this power he brings. Like when he's walking around like, well, I don't want to say any of his lines just in case people, but I'm like, oh my God, this guy is so good. But everybody in this movie, the Lisan Il Ghalib, like everything from, okay, Javier Bardem, best supporting actor. But his biggest competition is also going to be from Dune because Faye Rotha, the Anne Baron of the Harkonnen with Austin Butler, he's going to be in the running for best supporting actor as well. I don't know that Rebecca Ferguson has ever been better than she is in this. I mean, Rob, this movie is going to win so many Academy Awards. It's dizzying. It's going to qualify for a lot of nominations, and it's going to win a lot of them. Like all the technical awards, visual effects, sound design, costume design, like all that kind of stuff. Cinematography. I don't see anything coming along this year that's going to beat it in cinematography. Direction, best picture, maybe best actor, a slew of supporting. I don't know. It's crazy. Can you tell I get excited when I start talking about this movie?
Dude, it's the kind of thing you've dreamt of. To me, it's the pinnacle of science fiction filmmaking. And what's really exciting is what's possible moving forward. But you have to have, like, John, you should look into, there's a great video that somebody made about how they didn't use things like green screen on this. They used sand screen. So when they set up panels, the reflective light on like people when they were in ornithopters was not on a volume or anything like that. They were able to use real reflective light to create the verisimilitude that's throughout the movie. And that requires vision and understanding. Whereas so many times people are just being comped into scenes, but the way they created the reality of this is amazing. And a lot of it has to do with interactive light. Shout out to Greg Fraser, who you can see my 90-minute interview with on this channel on the Designing Hollywood podcast. Check it out.
All right, what's next?
We got Jared Oberfeld, who says, it is time for a sci-fi film to win Best Picture. I saw Dune Part 2 on 70mm because there are no IMAX 70mm screenings in Georgia. I still bought the popcorn bucket.
Yeah, like, again, I think this is the kind of movie that Academy people in Hollywood have been waiting for. I really think this is the kind of movie that gets the blood rushing to the members, and I think they're going to get really excited about this. And listen, I said on my open mic yesterday, or on Saturday, if another movie comes along this year that's better than Dune 2, what year did I had to ask this yesterday? What year did Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction come out?
94.
Okay, then this year
old,
will become comparable to 1994. Where in that same year, you had Dune 2. You had Pulp Fiction. You had Shawshank Redemption. You had the film that eventually did win Best Picture that year, Forrest Gump. What's that?
The Crow.
And a couple of others that just make like you just think about those three. It's like those three movies came out in the same year. I think 2024 will be a year like that if it's possible that another movie comes out that's as good or better than Dune 2, and heaven forbid, like two of them. It'll be one of the greatest movie years ever if that happens. It's hard to imagine, though. All right, what's next?
John Redcorn says, I had zero interest in Garfield until I saw that Snoop Dogg's voicing a cat in it. That sounds so stupid that I'm curious to see it now.
Okay, the one clever thing in that trailer was Snoop Dogg as a cat.
Yeah.
That was clever. It's not going to make the movie any better, but that, I will give credit where it's due. That part was kind of clever.
Snoop Dogg is kind of like ninjas. You put Snoop Dogg in something, it just gets better.
Classes it up.
No matter what it is.
Do you remember I think the first time I saw Snoop Dogg in a movie, I think he played Honey Bear in Starsky and Hutch with Owen Wilson and Ben Stiller. I think that was the first time I ever saw him. And it's like, this is kind of perfect. But yeah, Snoop Dogg just continues to class up the joint. All right, what's next?
We got Walter Whitewalker, who says over under 30% Williams scores Superman or new DC intro.
I think 0.
They already announced the composer, didn't they?
Probably.
For Superman? Yeah, it's not him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. No.
I think they by necessity they need a new theme. They need to establish, and whatever the DC logo is going to be moving forward, that's going to be important too.
And by the way, it's big shoes to fill. Not just John Williams' classic Superman theme, but Hans Zimmer's Man of Steel theme to me is pretty much on par with John Williams. Like those two pieces of music just are so inspiring and moving. So they got a tall order ahead of them to try to score this new one. All right, what's next?
Amin says, what do you call a sandworm that never breaches the surface? Shai Hulud.
Get it? Shy, S-H-Y. Okay, you know what? That's actually pretty good.
Pretty good.
That's actually pretty good. All right, what's next?
Sean in 3D says, have you seen the Jeepers Creepers reboot? Reborn is hands down the worst movie I've ever seen. It's mind-bendingly terrible. Made my butt pucker.
It's really a shame because the first original Jeepers Creepers has a real special place in my heart. I love that movie. It's so fun as a little horror film. We had
Justin Long.
Justin Long, thank you, who I really like a lot. Justin Long was in that. And I just thought that movie was great. Everything else they've ever done is terrible. And I never bothered with the reimagining of it. I'll just always go back to that first one. Because if you haven't seen the first one, you ever see the first Jeepers Creepers?
Oh, yeah. I like
It's
it.
Yeah, it's a steelbook.
fun.
Yeah,
It's
and I
such
don't
a
have a
fun movie.
steelbook.
With the creepers.
do.
All right, what's next?
All right. DG Productions says, Hans Zimmer elevated Dune Part 2 by opening the doors for us to experience the emotions. Kiss the Ring is sonically masterful track.
Yeah.
Hot take, but he was the star of the movie. No offense to Timothy.
No, he is not the star of the movie, but he does fabulous work in it. Absolutely. Like everything from the scene when you see a clip of it in the trailer, but when Chani and Paul kiss for the first time, and you get that sweeping shot of the landscape and everything, the music rises. Like it's just such a perfect. We've often talked about on the show that the real job of the score is not to stand out and make you walk out of theater whistling the tune, but it's something that elevates scenes without maybe you even noticing it. And man, the music in this movie does that.
You know what, though?
Go ahead.
There's just a nitpick because you mentioned that specific scene. And I was thinking in that moment when it happened, I'm like, because there was an edit after they kiss and they do that sweeping scene and then they show the tribe moving. And in my head, I'm like, I wish it was still building during the kiss. And as it cut to the wide, or maybe the tribe starting to move, that's where it hit that swell. Because to me, it was almost like cheesy that it hit that swell on the kiss, and it drew too much attention to the kiss.
Right.
And now I'm just nerding out. That in no way does that mean I dislike that scene or the film. That was just a nitpick.
You know what, John? Hans Zimmer, both Greg Fraser, when I interviewed him, and Hans Zimmer, I think it was at the London premiere on the red carpet. Both of these guys who, I mean, one of them shot it, one of them scored it. They're like, I can't believe how good this movie is. Like, they were totally intimately involved. Greg Fraser was like, this movie's better than the original. I'm like, dude, you shot both of them. He's like, you're never going to believe. Like, he himself, you could see him grappling with the reality of how great he thought this movie was. And he shot it. And same with Hans Zimmer. He's like, you're not going to believe this.
I want to go to Jonathan's point. There was one music choice that all three times I've seen the movie has kind of stood out as funny to me because there's this note that they do when something really profound and epic happens in the movie, which happens a lot in the movie, but whenever it does, you'll get that Woman of the Desert singing note.
Yeah.
Right? Like this really kind of epic kind
almost like Wonder Woman.
Something about the prophecy was just revealed. Right? There's a scene though, where I don't know if Denny thought about it, but a lot of people gathered around and, Paul's in a coma and then he wakes up and Johnny smacks him. And after, I don't know if they realize this, but she smacks him and then
Yeah,
like, that seemed like a
we got
bad
chuckles
place
in our
to put
audience.
that note.
We got some chuckles in the audience.
Yeah.
But then I was kind of like, maybe he did that on purpose to jar us.
Maybe, but I thought it was
Well, he lived.
odd time.
He lived through the water of life. That's,
Yeah.
that's what you get. You get a cry out.
My brother will not be happy with you. All right. What's next?
All right. Matan says, when David Greenbaum, Disney live action new head, laid his movie making mantra in front of Iger and Alan Bergman, he said, does this movie need to exist? Rest in peace, live action remakes? I don't think so.
No, right? Listen, some of the live, I had this debate with somebody the other day. While there have been some bad live action remakes, absolutely there have been. they made this little one called Aladdin that made over $1 billion at the box office and was fantastic.
So did Lion King.
The Lion King is the highest grossing animated film. The new Lion King is the highest grossing animated film of all time. They made like Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella is fantastic. The problem is not live action remakes. The problem is when they make bad live action remakes. When they make Maleficent or something like that, right? That and all due respect to everybody who out there who does like the Maleficent films, that's great that you like them. That's fine. But to me, they're really subpar, stuff like that. So if you think for a second that that means no live action remakes, you're wrong. They will still do some live action remakes. Just hopefully they make them in such a way that they're more attuned to something like the Aladdin or Cinderella, where they add something new, become incredibly entertaining to the audience, and makes them a lot of money. So, yeah, there's that. All right, what's next?
Kaiser Soze says, so far, the only member of the Authority to be cast in Superman is the Engineer. Do you think other members of the Authority will be in Superman?
Rob?
Probably not. I mean, I can't see them introducing Apollo or Midnighter, or anybody like that, because it would take away. I think the Engineer is representing the fact that there's already super teams in existence that are whether they're government sanctioned or whatever, and that maybe is a representative, or maybe she's a politician of some kind in terms of dealing with the front person for the Authority. But I can't imagine that they're going to introduce the entire Authority. I think they're going to set them up as antagonists.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Mr. I says, it's lonely night on Arrakis. Who are you choosing? Zendaya's Chani or Sean Young's Chani? I think I know Rob's choice. Bring on the filthy.
No, Zendaya. I mean, listen, Sean Young, back in the day, was, just beautiful. Like, and she had a sultriness about her, and she was absolutely incredible. I still go Zendaya. I mean, that's not a knock on Sean Young at all, but I go Zendaya. What about you?
I don't think I could choose. It depends what my mood was for the time, for the day, because I really like Zendaya a lot, especially if you've seen her in like Euphoria. But then again, I have a soft spot for Sean Young. My favorite Sean Young,
also when she was in Blade
Runner and Stripes.
Oh, yeah.
And also she was hot AF in No Way Out with Costner and Hackman.
I forgot you.
Yeah. Or, as the sort of drunk, drugged out wife to Michael Douglas and Oliver Stone's Wall Street.
Wait a minute. Was she in Jim Carrey's Ace Ventura: Pet Detective? Is she the one who went laces out? Was that her?
I think so.
Was that her?
I don't know, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, Ray, check that out for me. I can't remember if that was her. Guys in the live chat are saying, yeah, that was her in that. I totally forgot about that one too. All right, what's next?
We got DJ's World, who says, hey, John, like me, I know you consider Man of Steel as a masterpiece.
Yep.
Yet very controversial. If James Gunn's Superman is close to the same reception as Man of Steel, will it have failed in its job of being great? Oh, and this is $20 super chat.
Oh, thank you so much for that, DJ's World. It depends on the proportion. Look, no matter how great James Gunn's Superman is, some people are going to think it sucks. Guess what? Dune 2 is maybe the best film made in the last 10 years. But 5% of the movie critics didn't even like it. That's the subjectivity of film. So it all depends on proportion, right? Proportionate. It can't be a 50-50 split. It's got to really, for the most part, unify the audience. They've got to love it. You have to love it. Now, somebody was asking me about this the other day, because you remember the other day we were discussing about, whether or not the new Superman has to be a financial success versus whatever. Somebody brought it up again yesterday, and I made this example. I made this point. I think DC right now is in the same kind of situation that they were in with Batman, going back to the end of the 1990s when Batman and Robin came out, completely sucked. It killed the franchise. Like, it was so bad, it killed the Batman franchise, kind of crippled the comic book movie franchise. And it wasn't really till a couple of years later when X-Men came out in 1999 that it kind of came back, really.
2000.
And was it 2000? I thought it was 9. Okay, 2000. I'll take your dates over mine. So it took a couple of years for that to whole come back. So what Warner Brothers said was, okay, we want to bring, it was now fast forward a bunch of years, and they're like, we want to bring Batman back. So they go and get this little filmmaker, Christopher Nolan, who had done Insomnia, such a great film. And they understood that the first Batman back had to be about winning back the audience and that it wasn't going to be a blockbuster. Batman Begins made less than Black Adam. It made $370 million, which was enough to break even because it was about a $150 million production budget, maybe a little bit more than that. It had about a $75 to $100 million media spend because they put a lot behind the marketing of that. So it needed about 350, 360 just to break even. So it certainly, it broke even, barely, but it really was not a hit. But it was great. And what happened? The next film made $1 billion. And the film after that made $1 billion. I propose that DC's in the same situation now. They have something that's been run into the ground, like Batman had been run into the ground. They know they have to win the audience back. So they need this new Superman movie to be Batman Begins. I mean, maybe it doesn't make $500 million. Maybe it makes $300 million. Maybe it makes $350 million. That's okay. It can't make $80 million. They can't make Madam Web money. It has to do better than Madam Web. But I mean, it's okay. It doesn't need to be a big hit. They need it, though, to do what Batman Begins did. It needs to be awesome so that then when they do the next one, maybe it doesn't make $1 billion like The Dark Knight did. But that happens. So I would say it's okay if some people don't like it. That's fine because every movie's going to have some people. Some people don't like The Godfather. What are you going to do? This film's subjective. But it needs to be good enough, Rob, that we're talking 85% plus on the audience ratings. It's got to be a cinema score. It's got to be so good that people start talking, oh my God, DC's back. Like when Christopher Nolan did Batman Begins, he said, oh my God, Batman is back. They got to do the same thing. And I don't think a Man of Steel reception that was very, very divisive, that ain't going to cut it, I don't think.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think the real difference to me is going to be tone. Batman and Robin is as different from Batman Begins. I mean, they're like on opposite sides of the planet in terms of the tone that they're going for. I really think that the tone of James Gunn's Superman can't be anything near what Zack Snyder was trying to do with Man of Steel. It has to be.
And we say that as people who love Man of Steel. You love Man of Steel.
100%. It has to have, I've tried to explain this to people, and it's hard to explain because people, the tone of it has to be more along the lines of like the Adventures of Superman animated series, the 1950s George Reeves series, and the Fleischer Superman cartoons with a modern sensibility that you would see in, I don't know, take your favorite, almost not comedy. I don't want to say comedy, but it's got to have a lightness to it. It's got to be fun. Man of Steel is self-important. I love the self-importance of Man of Steel, but it was not even, it has to be fun. Superman is a fun character.
What you have often said that I really love.
Joy.
There's got to be an element of joy.
And by the way, that joy has to be in that movie from the opening scene. I agree,
yeah.
You know, you have to have a lot of, I'll tell you something. This is going to seem weird, but they're Warner Brothers movies. Lethal Weapon 1 is a very serious movie where Martin Riggs is sticking a gun in his mouth at one point.
Pretty heavy.
Contemplating suicide. Cut to Lethal Weapon 2. The opening Warner Brothers Shield logo, you hear this, dun, 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 and it cuts right into the car with Riggs and Murtaugh. And what does Riggs do? He's screaming, woo, and pounding on the top of the thing, and the car's driving. That's how the movie opens. And you're like, this movie is so different from Lethal Weapon 1. Same characters, same movie. The tone is way different.
And Joe Pesci didn't help that.
Joe Pesci was great.
He was great, but I'm saying for that tonal shift, like that was completely different from.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah.
And so, but those movies are both successful. People love them, but it was Lethal Weapon. There's another sequel. I mean, maybe it's not as important, but in terms of Lethal Weapon 2, that sequel is kind of, I mean, it seems silly to say, but Superman, James Gunn's Superman has to be the Lethal Weapon 2 if Man of Steel is Lethal Weapon.
Well, even Superman Returns, he was so forlorn, he was so depressed.
Yes.
Like, so then we had back to back, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this idea of injecting emotion, it's great that Superman has emotion, and Superman and Lois for the CW was great. I want to see a Superman that loves being Superman He loves living in Metropolis. He loves everything that's going on. He's Superman. We all want to be Superman. Superman should be awesome. Not like, oh, I'm so depressed. I don't know. I can't find myself. Enough of that. Get out of here with that noise.
Yeah, I like some.
Give me
the way some
Murtaugh
people
banging
describe
on the
it,
top of the car. Come on.
it's like they want to see
I
Superman.
want to go watch
When you read some people, listen to some people, like they want to see Superman injecting heroin. It's like, oh, work's so rough, and like they want it, but like, and remember, we're not talking about slapstick. We're talking about fun. We're talking about joy.
Yeah.
And slapstick and joy and fun, these aren't dirty words. When they're done badly, you get Thor, Love and Thunder. But when they're done right, you get Deadpool. And we're not saying Superman should be Deadpool. We're not saying that. But we're saying there needs to be elements mixed in there with the better stuff as well.
I have a theory. I think this new Superman movie is going to have an opening kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Not penetrating a temple, but you see exactly what Indiana Jones can do. You know, stay out of the light. You know, and he's doing all this cool stuff and everything, and it shows what a badass he is. I think this movie is going to open with some like Mongo giant disaster that just builds and builds. Superman's going to stop this from happening, and then something even worse is going to happen, and then worse is going to happen, and it's going to show you right from the opening of the movie. It's going to be this breathless action sequence showing you right off the bat that Superman is awesome.
You know what? You just made bells go off in my head by saying Indiana Jones. I think that's the tone Superman needs to have.
Yes.
The Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's like you got Indy going, you know, I hate snakes, you know, all that fun stuff. But at the same time, like guys die in the first 5 minutes of the thing. They're like this brute, like, so there's heavy thrills, action, but fun and levity and joy all at the same time. I think that the first Raiders of the Lost Ark is a perfect kind of tonal template for what the Superman.
I think that's what we're going to get. And James Gunn knows this. He knows this. And he's going to open up this movie with what no Superman movie has ever opened up with Superman, already Superman, being awesome. And he's going to give us this entire breathtaking opening sequence, and it's going to end with Superman standing there with a big smile on his face. He's going to deliver some line, and then you're going to hear whatever the music is, and the credits are going to roll. We're all going to be off to the races going, oh my God, it's great.
All right, what's next?
Sorry.
Jay, I didn't remember where we left off. My fiance surprised me with tickets for Dune 2 this weekend. Wow, so awesome. First time since The Hobbit 2 and Lord of the Rings that I wanted another 3-hour movie.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, this is one of the things that really stands out to me about Dune 2 is the pace. Because this movie ends, and it's like, that wasn't nearly 3 hours. That wasn't nearly 3 hours. Like, it just moves at such a, even like the slow parts of the film have such a definitive pace and cadence to them that the movie always feels like it's moving, like it's thrusting ahead in its narrative. And that movie ends, and I'm like, oh God, it's not over, is it? Just so well paced.
I think one of the things that helps that are there's some abrupt edits. There's like moments where they're having a chat in the desert, and all of a sudden they're on a mission. You're like, oh, this is another scene with other people, right? You're like, oh no, this is them. We've moved ahead. So you got to keep up.
Yeah, it's always moving. I love that about it. All right, what's next?
Jamal Turney says, how do you like heel Dwayne Johnson?
I don't watch wrestling anymore, so I couldn't tell you anything. Ray's liking it.
Ray loves it.
Man, it's good. It's getting way better with him being the heel.
All right.
Did you see the Instagram post yet?
No, I didn't see anything.
Okay.
Was it good?
Yeah, man. You should watch it after.
All right. Okay, what's next?
All right. On to our member chats here. I really like Stilgar in Dune 2. He had a childlike innocence to him, willing to follow Paul and die for him without thought.
But that became earned. I mean, one of the things I love about Stilgar in this movie, because somebody wrote in on the open spoiler and said, Stilgar's kind of just too much comic relief. I'm like, comic relief? Like, any laughs that came from Stilgar was never about Stilgar trying to be funny. It came from just the personality of the character.
Yeah.
And I love, there's a scene in the movie, this is inconsequential to the overall plot. There's a scene in the movie when he goes to like a council of elders, and he says, you know, and because in this conversation, they tell us so much about Stilgar, because Stilgar's like, I need your guidance on these outsiders because I have seen the signs. And one of the elders is like, again? And like, you just learn so much, just that one line teaches you so much about Stilgar. And then we see that played out in other scenes that are just, you know, this is a great example about the difference between saying joy and slapstick, right? There's no yuck moments in Dune 2. But there's this like scene where Paul's like, look, I don't believe in this stuff. And like Stilgar is talking to the faithful guy saying, the Mahdi is too humble to admit he's the Mahdi. Even more proof that he's the Mahdi, right? He's being sincere. It's not meant to be yuck or slapstick. It's fun and something joyous and endearing that comes out naturally without a ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum kind of moment to it at all, right? Yeah. And in that, I don't think he was comic relief at all. It was just the natural playing out of the character. That was really beautifully done. I love, all due respect to Austin Butler's performance in this as Fayed Rautha. He's great in it, 100%. Javier Bardem should win Best Supporting Actor at the Academy Awards this coming year.
I comedy, like comic relief, I won't, nothing to give away, but I did like when he was talking about the demons whispering in the desert and the way he ends, he's like, but they're real. It's like, that's a comic relief moment, you know?
Yeah, and but it's just him being the natural character. So good. All right, what's next?
Dominic Suma says, hey, John Campea crew, I got engaged this weekend.
Oh, congratulations, man.
To my girlfriend of 4 years. It was the second best part of the weekend because I also saw Dune 2. Wow. Holy crap, just kidding, but almost. All right, you saved it.
Shortest engagement ever. Shortest engagement ever. I don't know why. My wife has gotten really into sending me these short reels on Instagram. Have you seen any of these with the two cats? There's some of the funniest stuff out there, and it's the same video. It's this one cat that just goes, rah, 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 and then the second cat just going, meh. But then people put different subtitles under it, right? And Anne is like sending me dozens of these, and they're all funny. I'm just this married life, if you're going to talk about, and they're often things that are very true in our life. And she sent me one the other day. She goes, the one cat, meow, 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 baby, what would you like for your birthday? She's like, meow, a trip to Paris. He's like, that's really expensive. What are you going to get me? Meow, socks. Meow, from Paris. It's just things like that. You have wonderful, joyous things laying ahead of you in married life, my friend. Just let me say, enjoy it. Enjoy the ridiculousness of it. Embrace the lunacy of it, and you're going to have a good time. All right, what's next?
All right. I keep going to that one. Miko says, David Zaslav said there would be more DC updates in the coming months. Do you guys think Gunn will wait for Comic-Con, or should we expect it sooner? Also, what should we expect from the announcements, and what do you hope to see? Thanks, Bring on the Filthy.
Oh, I don't go into announcements with any expectations, just whatever it is. And by the way, I have no information that anything's happening at Comic-Con. As a fan, my belief is James Gunn loves Comic-Con. He loves Comic-Con. So I would expect that if we're going to get, some new announcements, it will probably be there. Probably. At the same time, what I don't want James Gunn to do is what DC did before and what Marvel got caught up in a little bit, which is announcing too much way too far in advance. Like in 2035, we're going to have this. And in 2037, we're like keep it to a 3-year window. I would say, like, even if you've already got your plans for 5 years down the line, 7 down, don't make those announcements just because too often they get derailed and we end up just getting disappointed. Like, just announce what you are honestly already moving towards production on. Other than that, I don't want to hear what's coming out in 5 years. You know what I'm saying, Rob? What are you expecting?
Well, if it follows the pattern that we followed when I was working on Superman Returns, the film starts shooting just like Superman started shooting in March, and at Comic-Con in July, they had made that 5-minute trailer reel, right? And it was pretty great, and it was the first time they put in HD projection stuff in Hall H. This is 19 years ago, and at the time, before people had seen the movie, it blew people away. So I would imagine that if they're ready, if they create something, and you think about it, March, April, May, June, you got 4 months of shooting. That's a long time. And I'm sure that they could come up with a reel with maybe a few effects that they could show at Comic-Con. I think they're going to make a big splash.
But do you see them like announcing projects they have not yet announced yet?
I don't think so, because I think they're going to try and keep the the focus on Superman. Because the problem is if they announce all this stuff in the pipeline, it gets diluted.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the message is, look, we're working on Superman. I always say, John, never put your universe before your characters and your story. Right now, this movie is where all the focus should be. We don't need announcements. What I need is the best Superman movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, and let's remember too, they already announced a lot.
Yes.
Like when James Gunn and Peter Safran came out and said, okay, here's our first slew of the new DCU projects, there was a lot announced there. So I could see some announcements pertaining to the projects they've already let us know about. Hey, we've gotten this director is going to do this movie we already announced. I can say the only thing that I could see maybe them doing an announcement of that we haven't heard anything about at all yet is whatever it was Jason Momoa was so excited about. That's it. Because right now, nothing that they've announced so far has anything to do with Jason Momoa or what his new character is going to be. If they were to announce anything new that isn't connected to something they've already announced, my guess would be the Jason Momoa situation. But honestly, that's it. That's all I got. All right, what's next?
We got CJ Rebirth. Excited to see Kung Fu Panda 4 this weekend. The second movie is my favorite of the series so far, especially because I think Gary Oldman's villain character is the best one that Poe's fought against.
I really like the Kung Fu Panda movies. I'm going to admit, I wasn't a huge fan of 3. Okay, I didn't love the third one, but the first 2 are great.
They are great.
I don't know that I've ever seen better Kung Fu choreography in an animated thing. I mean, it's really fun. They have a lot of charm to them. They're witty and they're just an entertaining thing to sit down and watch. And when Jack Black came out on stage, remember last year at CinemaCon? Jack Black came out on stage because we don't have a trailer for you yet, but I'm going to act out what a trailer would be. And he spends the next 2 minutes acting out a potential Kung Fu Panda trailer. I was like, I'm sold. I want to see this. So I'm going to go see that this weekend. I'm going to admit I'm surprisingly not excited for it, but I do like this franchise and I'm going to go check it out. So hopefully it's really good. All right, what's next?
Brian's YouTube channel. John, do you think Oscar voters may forget or at least be less top of mind with Dune 2 by the time Oscar voting comes in early 2025?
No, I really don't. And I'll be honest with you. I've never bought into the theory that Oscar voters forget films that come out earlier in the year. I think what happens, now you can say to me, but John, most of the nominated films are ones that come out later in the year. Yeah, because that's where studios who know they have Oscar contending films release them. That's where they release them. No, I don't think it's going to be a problem at all. I've never bought into that, and I certainly don't buy into it, Dune. Rob, I mean,
no, I don't know. And if people are forgetting, they'll remind you. I mean, the studios know. They look, Barbenheimer was summer.
When did Everything Everywhere All Once come out?
I think that
came out earlier in the year.
Yeah, it came out. And again, it also depends. Look, if Dune 2 is eclipsed by something better, but I don't think it will be.
Yeah. And if it does, awesome. We win.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't have a dog. I'm not like, oh, I hope nothing better comes out than Dune 2. No, I'm a film fan. I would love it if something came out that was better than Dune 2, because that means we win. But no, I don't think Oscar voters are going to forget that.
That came out in April.
Yeah, so like Everything Everywhere All at Once came out in April and won Best Picture. So, won everything. So, yeah, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. All right, what's next?
Lori Howard asks, question, do you think the Babylon 5 remake is dead? Haven't heard anything in quite some time.
I'll tell you what. The Babylon 5 remake is like one of these things that, like a lot of other stuff, where we've heard them talk for, well, let's be honest, decades.
Yeah.
Oh, did you, like every year there's some report that comes out that, oh, now they're getting moving on a Babylon 5. Then another year or two passes. Oh, now they're getting moving on a Babylon 5. And then another couple. Seriously, ever since my movie blog days, I've been reporting on stories coming out about a Babylon 5 thing finally getting moving. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
The animated film that came out last year was pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard people. I didn't see it myself, but I've heard people.
I liked it. I mean, I'm a huge Babylon 5 fan. Straczynski still talks about rebooting it. I mean, with everything else that's been rebooted, I just, it's not an easy thing to do, and it was such a niche. I mean, when Straczynski was at Comic-Con in the 90s, he packed a room Babylon 5 was huge for the fans that liked it. And it has a huge fan base, and you watch it again, it holds up pretty well. And it's on Max. They restored the show. But, again, that's a tall order to bring it back.
Yep. All right, what's next?
Culture Healer says Dune 2 nearly made more than Bob Marley's One Love did in 3 weeks. Any possibility that any Marvel project would do that this year? The only one out this
They
year
only
is
have
Deadpool.
one project coming out this
And
year.
yes, it will.
And yes, it will. Yeah, Marvel's only got one movie coming out this year. That, of course, is Deadpool and Wolverine. And look, I'm not projecting that Deadpool and Wolverine is going to make $200 million on its opening weekend, but you bet your ass it's going to make well over $100 million its opening weekend. So, yeah, only one Marvel movie coming out this year, and yes, it will definitely exceed that $93 million. All right, what's next? Or I should say $82.5 million.
Yeah.
Adrenaline Knight says, had no interest in Dune. Just didn't seem like my type of movie. Anyway, watched part 1. Good ass movie. Got to find time to see part 2. Yes, you do.
And listen, you're not alone in that. I've always contended, as much as I like Dune Part 1, because I really liked it. I didn't like it nearly as much as Dune Part 2. Like, I didn't lose my mind over it like I did with Dune 2. But Dune 2, I think, is an excellent, excellent movie. Won 6 Academy Awards. It's a wonderful film. But I've always said it is not for everybody.
No.
And I have no qualms with anybody who watched and said, that didn't really work for me. I'm like, yeah, that's unfortunate, but that's cool. But I have loved, and what's really surprised me, Rob, because I also really feel as good as Dune 2 is, I thought if you were somebody who didn't like Dune 1, I don't think Dune 2 is going to be for you either. But I had a number of people write into me on the open spoiler discussion yesterday saying, you know what? I didn't love Dune 1, but Dune 2 might be the best movie I've ever seen in my life. I was really surprised to hear that. Have you been hearing, like, what kind of reaction?
Yeah,
have
I
you been
mean,
hearing?
look, obviously the chewy nougaty goodness. Dune 2 is a war movie. You know, it has a lot of stuff going on, whereas Dune 1 is a lot of setup. It's a different kind of movie, and I would say this: Dune is contemplative. It also demands a little bit more mental energy than more of a pulp sci-fi kind of a thing. It's not an easily accessible movie. Look, if I was a kid, for instance, I don't think Dune is very kid-friendly either. It's something that is a deliberately paced film. I would say that Dune 2 is like a European art film melded with a sci-fi extravaganza. You know, and you need to have a certain sensibility because it's not the same thing you expect. And I think a lot of people are there's people I've seen that are like trying to jump on the hype train, but it's not, because they expect something different and they have to shift their expectations. So it's not for everybody, like you said.
All right, let's take one more, then we're going to wrap it up for today. What do we got next?
No surprise, a Dune 2 question or comment. Captain Kirk says, after I watched Dune Part 2, one thought kept popping up in my head recently. I don't know if it was an influence or not, but I kept thinking of the Foundation novels. Those I read when I was a kid, along with the iRobot series.
Tell you what, Foundation is another thing I've been loving. Like right from season 1, the first couple of episodes, I've been so taken with that. The whole idea of Empire and the 3 clones and all it's been so great to me, and I've loved the way it's developed and gone. I don't know where it goes, to be honest with you. I don't know where it goes, but we've been really lucky lately. Like when I think about the entertainment we've just had in just the last couple of years, like from Foundation, House of the Dragon, Last of Us. Oh, God.
Dude.
Which new episode comes out tomorrow. I'm so stoked for that. And then some of the great movies. And like, we've been getting some wonderful genre stuff. Some
And
great
I
genre
got to
stuff.
tell you, I mean, Weiss and Benioff, who created the Game of Thrones series, have their new series coming out, The Three-Body Problem.
Have you been watching that?
Has it started?
I did it not.
I
drop?
don't think it started yet.
Oh, it hasn't come out yet?
The Chinese version did, but I'm waiting to see their. I mean, I can't believe that we have Foundation, Dune, Three-Body Problem. Foundation and Dune are 2 of the seminal science fiction novel series from my youth, and to see that we're getting. I mean, you know, Foundation's very different from the books, but still, like you said, it's an attempt to do something very highbrow in terms of the genre on TV. And for the most part, you know, whether you like it as a book adaptation or not, it's pretty A-list in terms of what they're getting. So we are getting a lot of great I mean, to have Shogun, the 3-body problem, like you said, we just finished For All Mankind. Yep. There's Reacher. There's a lot of great, and these are all literary. For All Mankind isn't, but these are book adaptations, and I'm there. I'm for it, dude.
By the way, so I thought I had heard it had come out already, but I'm being told
March 21st.
March 21st is when it comes out. So hang on to your butts. All right, guys. And that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Don't forget to come on back and join us for the John Campea Show tomorrow. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast feed. The John Campea Show podcast, an audio-only version of the show, is there for when you can't be in front of a YouTube video. Maybe you're commuting, you're at the gym, you're at work, whatever. Go and subscribe right now. Whatever you're doing, go and subscribe to it on your favorite podcasting app of choice. So that way, it's just there when you do need it. All right, guys, I want to thank the people in the room with me. Ray Ora.
Everyone have a good day.
Jonathan Voico. Writer, director, producer, Robert Meyer Burnett.
It's my brother, Baron.
And that's something you didn't get in this version of the movie.
No.
My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.